Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Cordarolo. I am the managing attorney for the Children and Youth Practice Group at Disability Rights New Jersey. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Mike Marotta, Director of Assistive Technology Advocacy Center, and Denise Lugo Fowler, Chief Administrative Officer, Director of Training and Outreach. We're excited to talk to you today about Disability Rights New Jersey's new Self-Advocacy Guide, Navigating Your Rights to Special Education in New Jersey. Next slide. So first, a little bit about Disability Rights New Jersey. We are the designated protection and advocacy agency in New Jersey. There's one in every state under a system of federal law. We are a private nonprofit agency funded primarily through grants from federal and state government, and we also take private donations. The two main paths that we follow is protection. Our federal authority allows us to investigate and monitor facilities where individuals with disabilities are located to ensure that they are not subject to abuse or neglect. Our advocacy services include legal representation, advice and counsel, information and referral, as well as technical assistance to various stakeholders. We also engage in outreach, training, and education to assist people with disabilities and those who support them to better advocate. Our mission is to preserve and advance the human, civil, and legal rights of persons with disabilities and to promote their self-determination and integration in all facets of community life. We hope this guide helps to empower families of students with disabilities and students themselves to stay informed about their rights and to develop advocacy skills. This guide is part of a robust collection of tools and resources available on our website in the Self-Advocacy Resource Center. So now a few housekeeping points. The webinar is being recorded, so we ask that you please keep your audio and video muted. You may use the computer audio or a call-in number to listen to the presentation. To ask questions, please use the chat for all questions. You will be able to download the chat in the chat box by using Save Chat. We've done our best to make the presentation accessible. Subtitles are available. To see the subtitles, please use More Show Subtitles. If you should run into accessibility issues during the presentation, please contact us through the chat, and Mike will try and address it on an ongoing basis. Next, as I said, the presentation is recorded. Both the presentation and the recording will be made available on our website. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the purpose of this presentation is to demonstrate the guide and explain the layout. We will not be addressing specific content or specific individual concerns. At the end of the presentation, we will provide you with contact information should you have these type of questions. The next steps are very important to us. We very much want user feedback through the options that we will provide at the end, email or phone call. When we say user feedback, that can be anything from positive feedback, which we would all enjoy, or any concerns, obstacles you run into, accessibility problems, or if there are specific topics or information that you feel you would like to see in a future version of the guide. Because I want you to rest assured, one, we've already seen a couple of glitches that we are addressing, and two, the team has planned periodic updates to the materials that we will be showing you today. Next slide. So the first question we get is where to find the guide. I am going to demo this when we get to that part, but the easiest way to access the guide is to do a quick Google search. You can use DRNJ, which is short for Disability Rights New Jersey. You will see the first term to pop up, Disability Rights New Jersey, New Jersey's Protection and Advocacy Agency. If you click on that, you will go to our homepage on which you'll see a section called Spotlight. The Spotlight section highlights our newest resources and tools. If you choose and click on the Spotlight for the guide, you'll be taken to the Special Education Resource Center, and the guide is located in the middle of that page. Next. So I just want to go over the background and the purpose of the guide. We developed this guide over 2 years. to assist in advocacy efforts and ensure that all students with disabilities in New Jersey receive an appropriate education to meet their unique needs and to help prepare them for life after school. We sought to address the most common topics families face when advocating for a student with a disability to obtain appropriate special education programs and services. We also wanted to explain the applicable sections of the law, both federal and state law, in an easy to understand format. In other words, to cut through the legalese. And finally, we really wanted to provide information to help students and their families both advocate and when unfortunately they're facing something that they cannot resolve, their dispute resolution efforts. And now we will jump right into the fun part, and Mike will stop sharing his slide and I will start sharing mine to demo.
It's a good sign. This looks good.
Yes.
Let's see. I'll tell you when it comes. Okay, we're up.
All right. Thank you very much. Apologies, everybody. So I am going to just type in DRNJ. As I mentioned, the first term that will come up is Disability Rights New Jersey, New Jersey's designated protection and advocacy agency. When I click on that, I'm taken to our homepage. Scroll down to about the middle of the page, you'll see the spotlight here. Open that icon, and you're taken to Resource Center for Special Education. And voila, the middle of the page, you will see the guide. Now you can operate the guide in two ways. You can use the scroll bar to the right and scroll through the guide within the web page. Or you can do what I'm about to do, which is go down to the bottom, view and download the Self-Advocacy Guide, and that's going to give us a wider view. Now you will notice that I have the thumbnails open to the left. I plan to keep that open because that is another way to navigate. It is not the way that I am going to focus on, but it is something to keep in mind. You could also close the thumbnails and have a larger view of the guide itself. So the first part of the guide is 6 pages of really what we call an introduction section. And I'm going to go a little bit through. We've already talked about Disability Rights New Jersey. I'm going to talk a little bit about the guide itself. First, we developed this guide in a specific fashion to provide 4 areas of review: the content topic, the citations to the law, any timelines that are available or related to the topic, as well as steps and tips for advocates. You will see that it's an advocacy guide that focuses on ensuring students have a free, appropriate public education under the Individual with Disabilities Act. The section on how to use the guide provides a lot of very useful information. I mentioned the introduction. The next part is the table of contents, and this is going to be the key resource for navigating through the guide. You'll notice that there's a little paper airplane looking arrow. That icon appears on nearly every page in the upper left-hand corner. Clicking on that icon is going to take you directly to the table of contents. From the table of contents, you can access any of the over 50 pages of content, as well as the additional appendices and resources at the end of the guide. And I was on the page, how to use this guide. I click on that and I'm back to the how to use this guide page. One of the things I mentioned is that I was opening up the guide in Chrome. We do want to let you know that opening it up in any other browser but Microsoft Edge really requires you to navigate through the guide the way that we're demonstrating. We do say that the guide is optimized in Microsoft Edge. I'm not sure optimized is the proper word, but in Microsoft Edge, it appears that you're able to use the back arrow to navigate through the guide, whereas in other browsers such as Chrome and Safari, that is not an option. The guide is meant to be user-friendly, so hopefully what I'm showing you now will allow you to easily access information and move between pages without having to worry about the back arrow. I mentioned that the best way is to use the table of contents and the arrow in the upper left-hand corner. Right now, we're going to go through the types of links that are in the guide. This is what I call the BBU, the blue, bolded, and underlined, is an indication of a type of link. There are 4 specific types of links in the guide. First is a link to the glossary of terms. So whenever you see a blue, bolded, underlined term, just by itself, a plain Jane term, if you click on that, you will be taken to the page in the glossary where that term appears. So let's give it a try. Glossary of terms. As you can see, we're taken to the first page of the glossary. Now, I do want you to note that the link will take you to the top page of the glossary. It may be that you have to scroll through that page to find the specific term that you were linking to. For example, if we were looking for age-appropriate transition assessments, we would have to scroll slightly down the page to be able to see that definition. And then at the top of each glossary page, you have the icon that will take you back to the table of contents. I'm now going to click on how to use this guide, and I'm taken back to where we were, the how to use this guide page. Now, another link will take the user to another topic within the guide. And whenever you see a link that specifically has C before it, you know that you'll be taken to the new content page. So the example here is say, C, stay put. When I click on it, we're taken right to the content page for stay put. Again, you can see that there are a number of links embedded in the content, and most of them are glossary terms that, for example, if I wanted to find the definition of mediation, I click on mediation, and here it is right in the middle of the page. So I'm going to go back to the table of contents, back to how to use this guide. Now we have 2 other types of links. One is an internal link to a Disability Rights New Jersey resource, and you'll identify that by DRNJ link. This link is going to take you to a resource on our website directly to a web page. We recommend that you right-click on a DRNJ link and then open the link in a new window. This will allow you to see, a new window or a new tab. This will allow you to see the web page. And when you close it, you should be taken right back to the page that you were on. Now I'm going to try it in a new tab. I prefer a new tab because you can open it in the tab. You can explore the web page. This is for our Aspire transition planning tool. And when you're done exploring the page, you can either close the tab or simply click on the tab that contains the guide itself. Now, the last type of link will take you to an outside resource. And in the same way as the link to a Disability Rights New Jersey resource, we suggest that you right-click on it, you open it in a new tab. In this case, you can see that the tab is direct to a Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services resource. This is the PREAT student referral page. You can print this page and fill it out. And when you want to go back to the guide, you can close this tab and go back to the tab that you were in, direct to the page that you were at. Just to review the supplemental resources, in the appendix, we include an explanation of the 14 classifications of disabilities that qualify students for special education programs and services under the IDEA. We have an appendix of fillable forms that are available on our website. This is a resource where all of the forms can be accessed direct from the guide. We have another appendix that lists all of the additional links, either a Disability Rights New Jersey link or an external link, all in one place. The glossary that we've already taken a look at, other frequently used terms in special education, and then a page of additional advocacy organizations. So now I'm going to go first back to the table of contents, and we're going to talk a little bit about the introduction sections. The first section explains eligibility, what is required for a child with a disability to be classified for special education programs and services in one of the specific 14 categories that I mentioned. The next section talks about common language used in this guide, and these are terms that you're going to see quite often throughout the guide. A free and appropriate public education, otherwise known as a FAPE, which is the special education and related services that are provided to meet a student's unique needs. All of these definitions are from the IDEA and its implementing regulations. The citations to each term are listed at the bottom of the definition. In addition to FAPE, we have the Individualized Education Program, the IEP, which is the written statement that explains the program and services that will be provided to the student. It includes their measurable goals, any related services, accommodations and modifications that are necessary for this child to access their education. I will say that both FAPE and IEP are terms that appear throughout the content pages. They also appear as glossary terms. So if you were to see FAPE or IEP in a content page and click on it, you'll be taken to the glossary definition, which is slightly more user-friendly. It's not a direct quote from the IDA. The term parent has a specific definition in the IDA. It is written here. Please know that we use the word parent throughout the guide because it would have been a little bit unwieldy to include parent, guardian, and every other term in the definition from the IDA. But the term parent is an umbrella term to encompass parent, guardian, adoptive parent, foster parent, someone acting with authorization as the parent. That could be a grandparent or a step parent. These are all considered the term parent under the IDA. And then we have the term special education, the specific definition from the IDA, which is education including a set of services, adaptive instruction. The specific services that are listed in the IDA are speech language pathology services, other related services, which would be physical therapy, occupational therapy. It also includes travel training and vocational education. And lastly, we have the definition of a student with a disability. I will say that the IDA refers to a child with a disability. However, this guide is meant for children up to the age of 17 and then adult students 18 to 21 who are still eligible for special education programs and services till the end of the school year in which they turn 21. Again, it would be a little bit unwieldy to constantly be saying child and or adult student with a disability. So we use the term student with a disability rather than child with a disability. And now we're back to the table of contents. So I'd like to show you a couple of examples to help you understand the layout of the guide and how to navigate. We'll start with the first one, which is 504 plan. As I mentioned, there are 4 sections to the plan, to each page. The first section is the content explanation. And you can see by these BBU terms here that these are all terms within the guide. So when I click on accommodations, I'm taken to the glossary. The term is found here, the second term, accommodations. I click on the arrow in the upper left-hand corner. I'm taken back to the table of contents, go back to 504 plan. And I'm right back where I started. So there's the content. There is the section of the timeline, which explains timing that is relevant for students who have a Section 504 plan. The next section is citations. You will see in some pages the timeline and the citation blue boxes appear together on the page. When we're reviewing for changes and consistency, there may be further changes. It really depends on the amount of content dictating the layout of the page. And lastly, we have the steps and tips for parents that we discussed. Here we have one of the Disability Rights New Jersey link. It's to a fillable form for a 504 planning meeting request. If I click on this, I open it in a new tab. You are taken direct to the Resource Center to the fillable forms for education advocacy page. And here is the list of all the fillable forms that you will find in the guide. Each one is in English and in Spanish. And if you click on the one that you're looking for, the request for 504 plan meeting, you can see that it's a fillable form. You can fill it out online, save it, download it, email it, print it out, and send it. You can also just print it out and fill it out manually. We go back to the special education guide. I go back up to my little arrow, and here I am back at the table of contents. You may have noticed the standard format, content on the topic, timeline, citation, steps, and tips, but not all topics required all 4 sections. I'm going to click on another example, this one, extracurricular activities down here. You can see that there's not as much content explanation. There's also not a timeline associated with extracurricular activities. So we've chosen to use the section where the timeline would be to provide sample IEP language of what you could request be part of a child's IEP if they require accommodations and modifications in extracurricular activities. The second page is the steps and tips for parents. And I would say that this is the format that we started with, where content, timeline, and citations would be on the first page. Steps and tips for parents would be on the back page. All of these pages are printable as a one-page pull-out resource for that specific topic. Now, here in the steps and tips for parents, on the last step and tip, we talk about if the school district does not allow your child to participate in an extracurricular activity, you're unable to come to some type of resolution, you do have the dispute resolution options through the Office of Special Education available to you. And I'm going to use this example for an external link. It's going to link to the dispute resolution page on the Office of Special Education's website. Once again, I'm going to right click. I'm going to use the open to a new tab. Wait for it to load. And click open the tab. Now, I like to use this page as an example. I do find it very full of useful information. It goes through each of the dispute resolution processes: due process, mediation, expedited mediation, emergent relief, as well as a state complaint investigation, and provides a pamphlet that explains that process. The reason that I like to use this as a demo is to show that you need to scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page. And this is where you're going to find all of the forms for the various types of dispute resolution. I'm going to click on request for mediation, and it's going to open up the request form from the Department of Education. Note that this is not a fillable form, but it can be printed out and filled out manually. We recommend that any submission for dispute resolution to the Office of Special Education be done through email. This allows you to keep a record of having submitted it. Also, the Office of Special Education dispute resolution email will send you back an automatic response that acknowledges that they received an email from you. And once that request is processed, you will receive another email that states the request has been processed. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back to the guide, and I'm going to go back now to the table of contents. Now I'm going to look at another example, which is the manifest determination review. And here is an example of the format that is most prevalent. You have the content, the timeline and citations, and then on the second page, the steps and tips for the parent. And you can see here that there are two different links to other content pages. I'm going to choose the one for special circumstances. When I click on that, I'm taken to the information page for special circumstances. To get back to where I was reviewing a manifestation determination review, I click on the arrow, I go back down to manifestation determination review, and I'm taken back to the page that I originally started on. Now, we'll do one more example, mediation. Mediation is a rather lengthy topic. You can see that the content takes up nearly a full page on the front. So the timeline and the citations related to mediation are on the second page, which would be the back page if it were printed out. Under the steps and tips for parents, not so many steps and tips, but we do talk about dispute resolution again. And in this case, we are highlighting the parental rights in special education guide or packet. This is one of those little revisions that I talked about. I think we're going to take out the word packet because it's not necessarily needed there. This is the guide that is most commonly known as the prize. And when I open it in a new tab, most of you will probably recognize it. It is the May 2023 version, which is the latest version. And I am going to jump right to page 48, which is where the mediation request form is located. Now, the one difference in the form that's located in the prize is that it is a fillable form. So like the fillable form that we looked at for a 504 planning meeting request, this can be filled out online, then saved and downloaded, again, emailed or faxed to the Department of Education. It can also be mailed. If the request is made through mail, we suggest that you do so through certified mail so that you have some record of having made the request. So I'm just going to close this tab. I'm going to go back to the special education guide, and I'm back on the page where I started. Now, those examples basically explain how to navigate through the content and use the various links. At the back of the guide, we have several other sections that are also useful information. Appendix A is the classifications for students with disabilities. There are 14 classifications, as I said. We've tried to explain them in easy to understand format. I will also point out that if a student meets the criteria for more than one classification, they can be classified as multiple disabled, and that all preschool students with disabilities are classified as a preschool child with a disability. It is not until the IEP that will be in place when they go to kindergarten is developed, typically at the end of the year, that they will be aging out of preschool, that they are classified. So they will have a classification when they're entering kindergarten, but before that, they will be classified as preschool child with a disability. We use the arrow to go back. The second appendix is the one I spoke about. These are all the fillable forms. It mimics what you saw when we accessed the fillable form through the Disability Rights New Jersey website. The difference here being if you're in a content page and you don't want to leave at that point to go to a form or fill out a form, you can just make a note that you can go down to Appendix B. You can click on the 504 Planning Meeting Request Form, and you will be taken direct to the form from the link in Appendix B. So you also avoid the extra step of going to the website and then clicking on the form. But either one will work. Oops. Understandable in easy to understand format language. Some of them are related to evaluations. Some of them are related to other organizations and other rights. For example, FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So feel free to scroll through some of these and see if there are terms that you recognize or not. And lastly, we have a page of other advocacy organizations in New Jersey that may be a resource to you: the Education Law Center, ARC of New Jersey, SPAN, and Rutgers Law School Education and Health Law Clinic. We will also expand and revise this as more organizations hopefully join in the fight for advocacy for students with disabilities. Going back here, we have now reviewed the beginning part of the guide, all the intro pages, several examples of among the 50 topics, and the additional resources that are at the end of the guide. So I'm going to stop sharing purposely this time.
Let me get us back to the slides because I had the guide going. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
So at this point, if you have any questions and you'd like to put them in the chat, please feel free.
Lisa, we have one question in the chat that just says, does this apply to college students as well?
There are sections that apply to college students. There is a section on accommodations in college and work. There's also another section about adult agencies to support young adults with disabilities who have finished their secondary education.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering.
Okay. All right. Well, if other questions come up, I think this is how we can stay in contact. We can be reached at the number or the email advocate@disabilityrightsnewjersey.org. If you have specific questions about a individual situation and you'd like to request a service, it can come through our online intake form or through an email to our intake unit at Disability Rights New Jersey. So we would ask if you have questions about individual matters that you contact intake. if you have comments or run into some obstacle with the guide itself that you want to share with us, that you use the advocate at disabilityrightsnewjersey.org email. And if we have no more questions, then I think we can probably wrap up. And I want to thank everybody for joining us and for the time that they spent today. And hopefully you'll have some time to play with the guide and navigate your way through it and really learn what a valuable resource we hope it will be to you.